Motherhood, but not quite as we imagine. Thought-provoking, refreshing, straightforward, sometimes taboo, often seemingly ordinary, but always honest. Welcome to School for Mothers, opening conversations we all need to have, exploring ways in which you can be fulfilled as a woman, once a mother. Now here is your host, mother of 10, Danusia Melina Durban.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the School for Mothers podcast. Since we launched just 7 days ago, we've received an incredible response from women all over the world. Before we move on to our next episode, I want to spotlight one of our listeners. This is Fuchsia Hutton on Twitter, and I want to give Fuchsia a big shout out. Thank you for the kind words. Here's what she said. I really enjoyed the debut episode of the new School for Mothers podcast with Hannah Martin from Talented Ladies Club. I definitely recognise her feelings of being out of place while growing up. It was so inspiring to hear her journey. Fuchsia, I'm forever grateful for you tuning in and being an inspired listener. I'm so happy to hear when an episode hits home. So thank you hugely for not only listening, but taking action and letting us know. I just love to hear that. If you'd like to leave a review and possibly be a spotlight on the podcast, you can do so on iTunes or anywhere you listen to this podcast. I would love to hear your feedback at podcast@schoolformothers.com. Before we go further, this episode is sponsored by Me Sheets, my simple but incredibly effective system to get mothers not only doing the things they want to, but as important, if not more, Me Sheets reinstall mothers bang smack in the middle of their own lives. We all know how easy it is to meet everyone else's needs, but by the end of the day, week, month, and sometimes even year, to realize that somehow you've not got to the things that you dearly want to do. Think of it like needing to go to the loo or bathroom. If you're like me, you'll register you need to go, but then for whatever reason, you put this simple bladder task off until the very last moment. In my life, I managed to do, say, 15 other jobs before I finally accept that, hey, if I don't go now, things might get embarrassing. Let's loop back to Me Sheets then. What Me Sheets do is help you take yourself from low on your list of priorities to undeniably at the centre. And if that isn't good enough, Me Sheets model to our kids that taking care of their own needs is a must. To get Me Sheets delivered right into your hands so that each day you feature in all you do, listeners, Me Sheets won't let you struggle on with the crumbs. Go to schoolformothers.com/Me Sheets. That's schoolformothers.com/Me Sheets. So, on to episode 2. It's an important one, and listener, it's a spicy one too. I am thrilled to be joined by Darya Haitoglou for HITCH. Yes, HITCH. Darya is a psychologist, relationship coach, and mother of 2 beautiful children. She began her career in the UK managing international consumer brands for Procter Gamble. Then she moved on to human resources and eventually she became HR talent leader for the P&G Geneva hub. She quit her corporate job in Switzerland to move back to the UK, where she wanted to focus on transforming people's lives and work. She works across countries and speaks 5 languages. And as if that isn't enough, she is also author of the bestseller Enrich Your Relationships. And she also writes for the Huffington Post and is featured on BBC radio shows. This episode covers all things relationships, soulmates, and sex. Now, what isn't good about that? Listen out for when Darya and I discuss relationship red flags, how some things are absolute no-nos, and also the realities that having children has on romantic relationship. I mean, where does that romance go? And for those searching for a soulmate, Darya shares big advice about the getting to know one another period before intimacy. My highlight of this episode is when Darya talks about her adamant conviction that her husband was her soulmate and exactly what she did to make this happen. I have absolute admiration for Darya. It's an extraordinary story. I won't make you wait any longer. Let's go ahead and dive into our chat with Darya all about relationships. Here we go. So Darya, I've been really super excited to have our conversation in this podcast episode entitled HITCH. And I chose that specifically for you because of the fact that you're not only a psychologist, but you're also a relationship expert. I have so many questions for you and so much to cover. And I know you've been on an incredible adventure. Well, I'll call it an adventure, but I know you've been on running some remarkable retreats recently. So I'd also really like us to talk about, how they went, what you learned, and, anything that you really want to share with our listeners. So welcome. And I want a nosy question first, which is, how exactly did you attract your soulmate husband? Because I know you have a fabulous relationship.
Oh, hello, Danusia. And it's a pleasure for me to be here and talking to you especially. And actually just coming back from a trip to Greece and Mykonos. My husband, soulmate, is Greek. And it was first time for a long time, for many years, that we ran this retreat together. Now, how I attracted my soulmate is an interesting one because I actually don't know exactly the magic of it, but it was almost 10 years ago when we met at work. And I think there's some sort of combination of the right time and the right place. I don't believe in just one soulmate for life. I believe we're all on a spectrum of love. And some people are, on the one side of a spectrum, they're totally monogamous, let's say, and they only believe in one partner for life. Other people are on the other side of a spectrum and they believe in different models of relationships and everything in between. We're talking about monogamish, serial monogamy, one person at a time, or, more open, or even going to polyamory and all different variations of that. Now, 10 years ago, actually, I was married to another person. So in that model of my world, I was in a monogamy, but then it turned into serial monogamy because then I divorced, I split with my first husband, and I married my soulmate. How did I attract him? I did everything I could, even to the point of proposing to him. I was so sure that he was my soulmate. And if people are asking me, how do you know? How were you so sure that he was the one? And every time I would reply, if you're not sure, maybe he's not the one, because I was so sure that he was the person I want to be with. And in any capacity, if I were married, I was hoping to be in long-term relationship as friends or as partners or as colleagues, whatever. But I felt we were connected on the level of our souls, meaning that we had our values that were similar, our top values. We all have different values. And if you put on the hierarchy of those values, what are your top two? Mine are growth and contribution, for sure. So the first one is growth. I am growth, I wouldn't say junkie, but I am just driven by growing and learning and developing myself. And every opportunity I could find, I was going there. The last 25 years when I consciously self-developed myself, I think I've invested more than like 200,000 in my self-development. And that's what drives me in life. Alex, my partner, he's the same. And that in that area, he's very similar. And when we connected, boom, I felt from the very beginning, he was the person I could talk for hours and I could spend hours. And he was in a different relationship at that time. And I was getting married, not even married. I was getting married. I was engaged. And I couldn't at that time break the previous relationship because it was all the commitments, all the pressure from family, friends, social, everything, economics, because my soulmate at that time didn't have anything. He didn't have money. He didn't have place to be. He was just starting his career. And I was afraid, to be honest. I was afraid to lose and leave everything, which I had built by then, which was financial security and amazing, relationship with people around me and place where I lived, to go to someone who I liked how he looked. I liked how he was inside, those values, but I was scared. And it took me some time. And actually, one year we were just friends and talking at work over the phone. And I did propose to him and he said no. No. And he said, like, I was like, how come you say no? And he said, well, because you're married, not duh. And I was like, at that point I realized that I was in a very particular and uncomfortable place. I didn't want to be, but I wanted to be with him. So it took me a little bit of time to sort out the previous story. I mean, I can share with you that we need a little bit of time, but it was inner drive, inner calling to see him and accept. And he told me, behind your biggest fears lie your greatest dreams. And he was my fear. I was scared to go with him, but I knew that was the highest spiritual path, and I chose it against my parents' will, against my friends. They thought I was mad. And now, 10 years down the line, it's the best thing that had happened to me.
What a wonderful story. What an incredibly important journey of following your soul's calling. I mean, just it's so lovely to hear you, the energy that you have when you speak about Alex and how you transformed your world to be with him.
It's not always easy. Just to make it very clear, I thought that by choosing a soulmate, my challenges would finish. And he would be like total my protege and supporter and lover. We had amazing sex. At the beginning, it was like, wow, like more than 10 times a day. And I thought, this is the guy I want to be forever with. And this is the fairy tale I want to live. And of course, when we had kids and when all the logistics and the challenges of life started happening, it was not easy. And at some point, we were even considering splitting up. We considered different models of relationships. We were trying to find out, but the base was there. The chemistry at the beginning was there, the natural connection, the deepest values were connected, and of course the stamina, because it takes effort. It's like a marathon. It's not a sprint. A relationship is one of the most difficult and the most important and fulfilling parts of our life. So it's like investment. If you invest a little bit and you kind of hedge and take the money out, you will not gain a lot. But if you invest long term and you choose the right solid foundation and a company that you really trust, then the commitment is there, and then your ability and stamina to go through the hurdles. I used to run track and field 400 with hurdles. So I remember the time when I was so tired and I was just nearly falling down, but I knew there was more energy to go and jump over those hurdles. And that's what we're doing every day. I consciously choose to be with that partner because I believe this is the highest version of my fulfillment. And I learn so much every day from our ups and downs.
It's really important from what you said earlier that when you have doubt, maybe it's not the right person. So how do you work with people who come and say, I really like him or I really like her, I'm really attracted, but is this person the person that I should make that long-term investment with?
It's a really good question. I work a lot with international families where two people come from different cultures. And generally we come from different cultures because our families are so different. And we connect on a level of similarities. So I always look for what is similar between two people and how strong is that similarity can hold them and how long. And we have some research done in different institutes, and John Gottman does it, and Helen Fisher does it, and Esther Perel and myself. So we do different bits and pockets of how do we distinguish if the couple is great. And there are certain micro muscle movements in the face where, for example, contempt or disgust can be a killer for relationships, like a kiss of death. So if that is observable from the very beginning, I put my sort of little observation mark, and then I watch that, and I watch how the couple progresses. But let's say I always start with similarities. Why are they together? If there is biological chemistry between people, if they have great sex, if they're attracted naturally, because if there is not that part available, then it's harder long-term down the line to connect, because the challenges and the differences will make us grow and will make the couple learn from each other, but it is a challenge. So there needs to be a solid foundation. And of course, the doubt can be very specific. For example, a doubt can be if the person can be faithful to me, or if a person can be financially stable, or if a person can get rid of addiction, or if a person is there for me because they had a previous family, and so on. So different specific questions we would discuss, and if the couple is open to do it together, then two people discuss it in front of each other. And one of the, let's say, a no-go I can share with you, if one person wants a kid, and the other person doesn't, it's always a no-go. Even if short-term they have chemistry and they have an amazing connection and their values are similar, spiritually, they are like connected, whatever. But these are biologically wired in our reptilian brain, and long-term it just takes its toll, and it will, in 95% cases, split the couple.
Yeah, it's as if it's too much of a big compromise, even when, in the case of when one person wants kids and the other doesn't. It's, as you say, it takes that toll eventually, almost always. That's what I've observed. And actually, the other situation that I've seen is not quite as powerful as that in terms of a no-go, but it's where one person is absolutely dedicated to getting married and the partner doesn't want to get married, and they want to partner, they want to live together. And it depends on the strength of that value that's being held in the partner that wants to get married, whether that actually ends up being the kind of death knell of the relationship. These strong similarities and making sure that your foundation is, that kind of robust level is crucial. And it's funny how so few people really dissect that. They're so swept along with either the chemistry or the fabulous sex or the kind of activity partner, the things that they do together. It's not always that people sit down and actually say, so what do we have here? What do we share? What depth, what intensity? Is this shallow? Is this a relationship that will burn out?
Yes. And, it's very important. Actually, to have a discussion before having sex is crucial, because what happens during sexual intercourse, the hormone oxytocin gets produced and people naturally bond. It's very hard after sex to make decisions, because, unless they're very clear, no or yes, but yes. It kind of puts a veil on the couple. So I always suggest, if you can extend the period of getting to know each other before there's intimacy, physical intimacy, I would explore all the values, principles, life stories, shadows. What are the bits that we don't want to show? Because these are the challenges that will happen after the intimacy happens, when there's nothing to hide and everything will just be pouring out of the person, especially under stress. So I suggest to get to know the other side as quickly as possible, and then make an evaluation with your sober mind when you just look at it and see, oh, this is what I'm taking. Am I willing to take it for the rest of my life, or a really good majority of my life? Because let's face it, in the relationship that lasts lifelong, it's like a career. We used to have a long-term or life career. Now not anymore. We choose a company for a few years and we change that company for most people. Some only stay, again, it's a spectrum, and some change even quicker. So similarly to relationships, we need to think of it, okay, what is a successful relationship for you? Are you considering long-term partnership as just a status quo, like a lifestyle? Because I would like to be with someone because I would like to share my memories or my trips abroad, or I would like to have a partner for my children, or I would like to have a business partner so we can go hand in hand. some people who say, well, I would like everything, and that is a challenge. And that's why most people stay single in that category, when their expectations are so high and they cannot find the right person as they, let's say, when they reach 30s or 40s or 50s. So, and the other side is when they fall for whatever is available, or the proximity effect. That's the other side of the spectrum, where they say, okay, well, I know you very well. I've been, knowing you've been my neighbor, or you've been my coworker for so long, and I would just fall into that person, and the intimacy happens. It's very common, but it's not conscious, as we say. We want to make sure that the couples, when they form, they spend the majority of time getting to know each other. And I can share, actually, there's a research that supports who matches who hormonally from neurofeedback and what happens in our brain. We have predispositions. We have 4 categories that actually work together, and I'm happy to share that.
Share the 4 categories. I'd love to hear them.
Okay, so that research is a combination, and credit goes to Helen Fisher. She's an anthropologist, and she studies love. She was also behind chemistry and Match.com questionnaires. And what Helen did, she looked at the brain scans and how different people reacted differently to the opposite sex, or even the same sex, if it's a lesbian or gay couple. So we're looking at love, matches. So 4 categories. The first category is called the builders, and they are people who like stability, they like predictability, they are the most faithful and loyal out of all categories. They like to stay at home, have their routine. They're the great finance and legal people, talking about work, and very stable engineers. So everything that's down to earth and facts and figures based. Okay, or in Lakota tribe, they're called bears. But these are let's call them builders. And the hormone that's predominant in that circuitry in the brain is called serotonin. It's a happiness hormone, but quite subtle and down to earth.
Yes, I know the ones.
The opposite of builders, they're called explorers. The main hormone predominant in that circuitry is called dopamine, and it is generally people are risk takers, adventure seekers. They're very interesting and spontaneous, charismatic people. They're great leaders. In Lakota tribe in Native America, they call them eagles. These people who like to fly high and see kind of the patterns of what's happening around, and they're almost the opposite, dopamine and serotonin. And these 2 categories, they are challenging together. Sort of, they not very easy compatible.
I have to stop you here because I was married to a builder.
Yes.
So I already know he was a builder, and I'll listen to the next 2, but I suspect I'm an explorer. So that's a challenging combination, as you say.
My first husband was builder, and I'm an explorer, and you can have a combination. So the 3rd category is called director. Directors, they are led by testosterone, and their sort of main traits are dominance. They like to control the orders. They're great leaders, but they like to be the alpha, the dominant.
Yep.
And the 4th one, they're called negotiators. And so in Lakota tribe, the directors are called buffaloes, and the negotiators are called deer. In terms of animals. So negotiators, they're harmony people, and the hormone there is called estrogen. And they like to feel the group. They like to make sure everything and everyone is heard and listened to and observed and seen. And it can be both a man or a woman. For example, Bill Clinton was the guy who cried at his daughter's wedding, whereas Hillary wasn't. And she is typical testosterone director, whereas he a negotiator. It can work across different characters and genders. So what, for example, my example in the marriage was that I am an explorer and negotiator, and my first husband was builder and a little bit also a negotiator. So we connected in different circumstances, and I thought, I was so heartbroken from my previous relationship, and I needed a very solid, faithful man. Yes. And I even Googled to see which nationality men are the most faithful ones, and guess what was the answer?
No, I can't guess. Come on.
The answer was Great Britain.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. And apparently, in the statistics of like 15 years ago, were number one in terms of loyalty and faithfulness.
Yes.
By design, talking about passion for Explorer, I didn't know that. By design, I chose him, and it didn't work out. Now, Alex, my soulmate, is perfect match because he is also explorer and he's a director. So director and negotiator, they work very well together. And generally, it's a nice bond, easy bond. So we're like a puzzle. I'm explorer and negotiator. He's explorer director, and that works very well.
I can imagine that would work very, very well. I work very well with negotiators and directors. Builders, it's just challenging. And also I had this thing. So from an astrological point of view, I can pinpoint a Capricorn man in a room. Mm-hmm. And quite a lot of Capricorn men that I've met are builders. Mm-hmm. And I had this like almost homing pigeon kind of, I could home in on. And for years, unless they were a negotiator as well, it was a problem. So it really, really speaks to me. I love this. It's so, so good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very simple. It makes sense. And I'm not saying that it's impossible to make a relationship between explorer and builder. It's just more challenging and requires a lot more chemistry and passion mm-hmm. and work. And I work with couples, and they're fine after many years together. They just know that area needs to be looked after because it's not naturally as a connection. It's not natural. One person wants to take risk and go on spontaneous holidays. The other person wants to stay at home and watch TV.
Yeah. You have to work hard at it, don't you? You would need to work. And particularly if there isn't a very strong level of or just a strength in other areas, I would imagine that would put some kind of fragility on it. I have a question for you, actually, that relates to John Gottman's work.
Yeah.
I've been following his work for some time, and certainly when I was deciding to divorce, or just pre that decision of divorce, I really got into his work and love the kind of models that he comes up with, and his ability to actually work with couples and to see whether he believes within, maybe an hour, actually, he can predict whether he thinks this relationship will last. Mm. So, but the one piece that I'd love to see what you think about is John says that the success of a marriage or relationship rests on particularly one area that he's noticed, and that's the man's willingness to be influenced by his female partner. Obviously in a heterosexual relationship. So if the man is not willing to be influenced by her, his research shows that the relationship will flounder. It will flounder, it will not. What's your take on that?
It's very interesting. I have seen both work together, and I know, for example, in the director-negotiator style, when director is a man and negotiator is a woman, then there's a subtle boundary between influence. And of course, the director will dominate and will make sure that they are the ones who make decisions. And the negotiator will be there to support, naturally. Now, in the reverse order, and nowadays we see a lot of successful women in relationship with estrogen and negotiator type men. And in that combination, it's a different dynamic. So, of course, then men would have to receive the influence from a woman unless they become a director themselves. But two directors in a relationship is not a good sign. They're going to fight a lot. And two estrogens, two negotiators in relationships, they're not also very easy to live together because they become bored of each other. It's almost like there's no direction for the union.
Yes.
So I say, looking at the different angle, it can work in different scenarios differently, but definitely for the scenario of a negotiator, a man is a negotiator and a woman director, then yes, a man would need to be influenced, and if he doesn't, then the relationship will not last long.
Oh, that's great. It's really good. Yeah, I like it. So I'm thinking habits in your life, and I'm wondering, Darya, what habits are non-negotiable in order for you to be at your very best as a woman and also a partner, as a wife. So what are those habits?
I love this question. Actually, I wrote an article about habits, and there was the BBC interview on that topic. I think that habits rule our life. And my habits, I craft them. I craft them carefully. I'm not a routine person whatsoever. I love spontaneity and change, and I thrive on change. But I also understand that unless I have helpful habits, my life will just happen outside of me. So, having a family and kids and people to manage and companies, and we have families from different countries, coordinating the logistics is a massive thing. So for me, the habit is generally planning ahead, if possible, although I am not a great planner. I'm spontaneous as well as my husband. So we take a lot of time to use this time together to plan, and always have one-to-one, let's say private or sexy time on a weekly basis. If we don't have that habit, then our relationship suffers. And if the relationship suffers, then everyone around us do so. So my habits, they run around, apart from the morning routine, of course, I love it. So I wake up early, I do the trampoline 5 minutes, and then yoga, a bit of meditation, journaling. I have very healthy breakfast. I use NutriBullet to have smoothie from spinach and all the goodies. I have lots of different things like ginger, turmeric, and goji berries and chia seeds. So all the healthy stuff that I put inside me in the morning, so I can sustain my energy and be at the peak. I also do what I love, and that gives me energy throughout the day. I have changed my career. I have changed my family. I have changed my location where I live, just to create the lifestyle that I want. We just spent 10 days in Greece on a boat. We're going to spend 2 months this summer on a boat, and that's where I create. That's where I connect with people. That's where I bring my family and friends and do some masterminds and beautiful paradise locations. And I think it's based on my little habits, because if I didn't, it would be just happening spontaneously. And it's beautiful to be in a flow, but I believe the flow can be created by little but consistent little things.
Sounds idyllic.
Well, sounds not always that way. I have my drops and low points. And actually yesterday, when we came back from Mykonos, we were with nanny and kids. And I thought, oh, how wonderful, we're going back home. And as we arrived, the kids were just all over, there was a mess, and they didn't listen to me, because we had different nannies at different days and different kids from around the world also joining us at the retreat. So I actually spent 2 days, and today was the third one, feeling like a monster mother, like disciplining them, putting them into routines and order, sometimes raising my energy level and making consequences that are not very pleasant for them, to understand that you cannot jump over hurdles. Habits are important. They need to learn it automatically in order for us to release that energy to do something else. And kids require this, and I put a lot of effort into that. So for me, it's like a life force, to have the habits. And when I don't, I feel it. Like I had yesterday a huge headache because they didn't listen to me, and I couldn't understand why. And then I realized, hey, 2 weeks we were off the routine, off schedule, off habits, and now we're going back. And tomorrow I'm off to Moscow for another retreat, but I'm back on Monday, and I'm going to be again 2-3 days back into the routine, painfully, but it has to happen. So it's not always rosy, it's not always idyllic, but I look at the positive side of things, and I know how I want it to be, and I get there, because it's a journey. We all go through it, and sometimes it's not nice or very clean or all positive, but it is what it is. And as soon as we have that beacon, we go towards it.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I'm really, really glad that you emphasize the fact that it's not all idyllic, because as you described, Mykonos and, all the beautiful, I mean, I was pretty stunned at the healthy breakfast. Like, it's really hard not to sit and go, oh God, like, oh, and, I do a lot of work around comparison and the positive tool that comparison is. And so I wasn't necessarily going, oh my goodness, I'm not as perfect or anything like that. I was just noticing, like, oh my goodness me, there's an opportunity to learn from Darya of actually placing beautiful, healthy food in your body. It's like, okay, yeah, there's a choice I could be making. Okay. So it's really nice. It's wonderful to hear you.
I've learned it the hard way, because for years, breakfast for me was always, with the family, and we ate the porridges and the cereal and the cornflakes, whatever, the breakfast with a lot of wheat, even muesli. And then I had a nutritionist test, and I felt so tired in the morning. And I figured out I have wheat allergy and also caffeine and intolerance. And there's something else. But so I switched completely my breakfast routine. And it takes effort and takes a little bit of stamina to go through that. But once it's there, I just buy it on a regular basis, and I know what it is. I mixed everything in one bowl. I just put 2 scoops of tablespoons in coconut water, plunge spinach, turmeric, and ginger. But of course, it takes time to buy that all thing and stock the fridge. But that's what, for me, that gives me energy. Without that, I'm like Medusa, like during the day I'm going and I'm like, I want to sleep in the afternoon. And sometimes I do, and I don't feel well. But there's one thing, if I were to stick to, that would be my morning breakfast.
And tell me what happens when you don't have sex with Alex.
Oh my God. I am like a terrible dinosaur monster. Everyone feels that. I have my low moments and I demand sex. Like, I would go after Alex, and it even pushes him away from me more. And I know it consciously, but I become that testosterone director. And then we fight because he's like, just leave me alone. I'm stressed. I just need some time. I don't feel, he may be going on his own journey. He maybe he maybe not be feeling well, right? And although consciously I understand that, but my love language is kinesthetic. I love to be touched. I love to be made love to. And I get interested in other men, and I tell him that. So of course we have our fights, and we have one rule. That's another habit. We share everything. We share our sexual fantasies. We have, during our date night, our thought process analysis. Like, we share who we want and who we like around us. And sometimes it hurts, but I believe people who share the deepest secrets, they're the most connected. And although we do have our own kind of shadow side, but when we share that, it brings light in. And then once we share our light and we see each other in a really good spot, like when I was training or when I saw him training, we had great sex. But yes, we have some times when we don't. So it will pass. That's for sure. I am that type of person. I'm like, okay, this period will pass. This stress will go away. We will still, I will be there. There's one thing when you go out on a date, the person who stays the longest or the last one will get sex eventually. So I'm that type of person. I'm like the person, like a frog who waits and sits and there's a fly. And I'm like, with the tongue, I caught the fly. I'm happy. If I have I doesn't catch a fly, I don't get mad long term. I still sit there and I wait for the fly. So I'm at times very passionate and quite turbulent when I express my desire to have sex, and I understand he doesn't like it. But eventually I calm down and I say, look, and I do something that he likes, and I know his language of love is action. So when I start doing things towards our family, security or financial stability, or just for him to do some little things, like put an envelope in a post, and he sees me doing it for him, he's more open to have sex. I know that. So I I just earn it, like any other woman, and he earns when he wants it. But, it also is a little bit of a work long term after a few years together.
Well, the thing is, what I'm hearing is that you actually have to really be consciously working on this, and that it doesn't just flow, naturally necessarily. I mean, the connection and the chemistry is there as the solid foundation, but actually apart from that and additional to that, you actually have to put thought into this. You have to find out what the love language is of your partner and yourself, crucially yourself, so that you can meet your needs and your own needs, and then you can actually work with the person that you love to actually warm them up to it. Particularly if you're that kind of demanding, kind of passionate, I want it now kind of woman, then that typically pushes men away.
Yeah.
Typically. Although, and there's a lot of women that are like that and who are saying, what happened? What happened? I thought, the narrative is that men always want sex. And here I am, kind of offering it and saying, yes, yes, yes. And men are turning the other way. So I think for me, this links with the testosterone model of a lot of successful women. And kind of, there's quite a lot of stories and narratives around strong, intimidating women and the effect of that on relationship. Or rather, I should really tweak that. What I mean is the perception that these women are strong and intimidating. Because I'm not too sure if they really are. It's just that they get labeled as that. So, is that something you notice?
I believe every woman wants a man who would be there for her, protect her, take her by, hair and just make love to her. It's just nature. We cannot go away from that. We're 98% DNA, the same DNA across humans. So we're the same in a way, right? And that is engraved in our biology. So naturally we want that. Of course, with the rise of feminism and a woman who gives birth and a woman who does pretty much everything, like we are so powerful and we are much stronger on the inside than on the outside. Whereas men, they've been fighting and going on the hunting trips, right? But they're stronger on the outside, but much weaker on the inside. And they're not as self-aware. And the combination of a woman and a man is beautiful. And I believe that a woman wants that connection. A woman wants deep intimacy. And a man wants deep intimacy as well. But we are wired slightly different in our brain. And that's why we access that field in a different sort of way culturally. I mean, there are other cultures that have completely different blueprint, like Tibetan culture, where there's one woman and many men, for example, or in Africa, there are many tribes that have. What is the purpose that you might ask for a woman to have many men? She can get pregnant in 9 months. There's no biological benefit. She's just with one child. But then it was this Helen's research, and the woman was asked, so what is your benefit? And she said, well, if you have one husband who is a hunter, you always get meat. If you have another husband who is a fisherman, you have meat and fish. You have another man who can bring you jewelry and so on. So it's a distribution of resources, yes. Right? It makes a lot of sense. Then there are cultures where there's one man and many women, and it works a different way, depending on, again, the quantity and the quality of that intimacy that is culturally bound. So I believe we are in the context of our culture, and European culture has been marriage institutions, solo sort of mating relationship between two people. That's how it should be. And I believe we're on a spectrum. We need to find our model. We need to find what works for us and discuss that consciously with the partner or partners and see what works for us the best. How can we feel happier? If a person, has a family to support and they marry a different person, that is already a complex family. And I work on a systemic way, and I see how the hierarchy of those relationships is important to establish for the flow of love to be there and a flow of passion. There are certain rules that need to be met and respected in order for the successful marriage to be there, or a successful bond, and taking into account the previous relationships and the previous children from different marriages, etc. So it all has a little bit of a systemic feel to it, and we can talk forever on that topic. You could just, we probably need like another few hours to explore. But I'm just, to answer that, yes, I believe a woman wants a stronger man, stronger on the outside.
Yes, exactly. So I'm really looking forward to being able to point listeners to your work, because there, as you quite rightly say, we could talk for hours and hours. I have so many more questions for you. And in fact, I'm hoping that you'll return at some point to this podcast and to School of Mothers, podcast, because there are other questions that we really must cover. And for now, it's going to be joyful to, send along listeners to go read your work, come and hear you talk, and maybe work with you, because you have such a wealth of experience and wisdom around love and relationship, and so much more, actually. So thank you so much. This is absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Danusia.
Wow. What an episode. Were you making notes? Because I know I was. Darya honestly shared the realities of her romantic life, both past and present, for which I'm so grateful. Isn't she a wisdom magnet when it comes to all things relationship? Don't forget to go check her out online. And of course, you can find details about her in today's show notes. And by the way, this episode links nicely with the School for Mothers live event, which is in London on November the 17th, 2018. This celebratory day includes samplers of School for Mothers curriculum, and in the afternoon I am joined by 8 incredible speakers to explore the importance of getting our main support systems on board. If you're UK-based and you'd like to join us, we're offering a limited number of complimentary tickets to our podcast, Early Adopter. Yep, that's you. So to claim your ticket, go to schoolformothers.com, head to the event page in the top menu, and enter the code VIP podcast. That's VIP podcast at the Eventbrite checkout. I'll pop those details in the show notes too. Coming up next week, we're continuing with another magnificent mother rocking it out into the world. Oh my gosh, I'm pretty excited about this one. We're going tech unicorn when I chat with Jess Butcher, MBE, entrepreneur, angel investor, board director, multiple TED talker, and co-founder of Blipper, leading augmented reality tech platform. I cannot wait. Same time, same place. Meet me here. But before I let you go, have you subscribed to the podcast? Because we're going to feature bonuses that we won't always announce on social media. In order for you to never miss an episode, especially the secret bonus episodes, make sure you subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. Thank you for joining us again. Here's to you.
Thank you for tuning in to the School for Mothers podcast. To continue the conversation and keep your dose of inspiration up, head over to schoolformothers.com/podcast, where you'll find bonus content from Danusia and her guests on habits, recommendations, books, best apps, time-saving secrets, life hacks, health, sleep, and anything in between. That's schoolformothers.com/podcast.